I am here with Russell Keith-Magee. I want to thank you for joining us. I'm doing quick little interviews and teasers for the Python Web Conference, which will be coming up here in June. Again, I want to thank you for joining us all the way from around the globe. I think it's morning where you're at and evening where I'm at.
It is indeed. Thank you very much for having me. Nice to see you again.
So one of the things I know about you, probably the first thing I ever knew about you was the Beware project. What inspired this Beware project?
So there was actually two things that happened at the same time. The first was that I had this, I learned to program back in the late 80s, back in the dinosaur era on Borland tools, so Borland Pascal, Turbo Pascal. And they had the 80x25 console GUI. Like there was a really, really good IDE for editing code in. But more importantly, it wasn't just the editor, it was also a debugger. It was a really, really good debugger for working through visual code. And I am a minimalist when it comes to my editing environment, but that doesn't mean that I don't want to be able to make the use of this desktop that I've got. But the debugging environment, like the default debugging environment in Python, definitely at the time, it's better now, but at the time it was absolutely basically PDB, one line at a time debugger, which is not a great user interface. So I wanted to say, okay, let's see if we can build a good graphical debugger that is just a debugger, not a full IDE and everything, just a debugger. And that meant, okay, how am I going to put a GUI around this? I don't know. Maybe I can build a widget toolkit that's cross-platform and everything. And that was sort of path one. Path two was that I actually had a startup at the time where it was a web startup, worked great, but then we needed a mobile app, and I was sort of the one-man tech team for this startup. I need an Android and iOS app, but I can't use Python. I can't use the language that I know. I can't share any of the code between the back end and the front end. Can that be fixed? And and that means we're also going to need a widget toolkit because like none of the TK-Inter or anything works on web. So the two kind of converged at the same time. And it was like, but this is the bigger existential problem. Yeah. iPads are coming, iPhones are everywhere. What's Python's story in this space? And so Beware sort of became this umbrella project for me of working out where Python is going. What is Python's story when everyone isn't carrying a laptop? What is Python's story for building apps, like GUI front-facing apps, which has always been a bit of a weak point of Python. Yeah. And so, yeah, Beware is that kind of umbrella project. It's a whole bunch of little things that converge together for how do you use Python in ways that it hasn't always been used.
And I totally recommend to people, if they've not seen the Black Swan talk from PyCon, that I think they should probably watch that in preparation for what you've got in store for us. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're going to be talking about at the event coming up?
So this year I'm taking a very specific web focus, looking very much at what is Python's story on the web. There are a bunch of things you can do now. There are a bunch of things that are on the horizon, not necessarily working that I can say, hey, go and use this in your web app, but it's certainly close enough that it's worth saying, hey, if you're forward thinking and you want to be on top of the next wave, this is probably a good place to look. The web as a platform has changed a lot in the, 14 years now that I've been involved with the Django project.
That's an understatement.
Yeah. And the Django is great. And I still love Django, but the web that Django was built for isn't the same web we have today. And the tools that exist in the browser are very different to the tools that existed 14 years ago. And some of them are very, very interesting from the perspective of getting Python into the browser. And so that's essentially what I'm going to be looking at is what is Python's story looking forward?
That's very interesting. I'm looking forward to that as well. And so what are you looking forward to as an attendee of the conference? I assume you'll be around for the 2 to 3 days of the conference. It's going to have a day of tutorials and 2 days of talks. And so if people want to come find you in the hallway track or in your channel track, like what are you looking forward to there?
I'm mostly looking forward to this brave new world of what online conferences mean in practice. Like we have had this thrust upon us through reasons that we'd rather not have otherwise gone to. But this being remote thing is very dear to my heart. Like you said at the beginning, I'm calling in from Perth, Western Australia. I am literally at the back end of nowhere. Every time I go to a conference, I win the who traveled the longest to get here.
Yeah, I thought your video would be upside down.
We fixed that in post. That's easy.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I do spend a lot of time on planes. Like I have regularly spent 2 days on a plane to get to a 3-day conference to fly back for 2 days.
incredible.
It'd be great if I didn't have to do that quite so often. As much as I love being in person with people, finding a way to replace that is something that's really key to me. I want to see how events are doing this, and I want to participate to sort of make that next jump in technology. I have worked virtually for, I think, going on almost 13 years now. Like, I have been a remote worker for almost 13 years. And over that time, video chat has gotten better and better. Like, the support of people, like the things you can do remotely have gotten better and better. And the last sort of frontier that I really see is, how do we break that? How do we get over that social barrier? How do we make the community stuff happen when it's not just recording a video and throwing it up on YouTube? How do we make that social aspect happen? I'm really keen to sort of see how
the hours will line up well for you to join us for the social events that are going to happen during the event. We're actually
probably a little early for me to be cracking open the bourbon, but I will.
You need a time shift for that.
But yeah, that's true. That's true. It's always past 5 o'clock somewhere. So
awesome. Well, Russell, I want to thank you so much for being with us and actually being a part of the grand adventure I'm calling the Python Web Conference. We're looking forward to seeing you here in June, and I want to thank you again for joining me for this quick little interview.
My absolute pleasure, and I look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks.
Awesome. Thanks.